Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. I've got something really interesting to show you today. As many of you work digital, you know you need a computer in addition to your radio, and digital is a way to use both. And we've all done it. I've done it. I've got my big computer here set up to work with my reference station ICOM 7300. But computers don't have to be big. This is a computer. This right here is something called a Raspberry Pi. And you might recognize it by its box and the Raspberry logo and all of those things like that. It is a little Linux computer right here. Okay, and this thing can do all the things that you would have a regular computer do with your radio, including running things like FLDigi, WSJTX, so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff on there that you can run. There are many, many different pieces of software for the Raspberry Pi. This one right here is a Model 4. What I'm about to tell you will also work on a Model 3. This is a Model 4, Model B. The way this works is really quite interesting. You've all seen these memory chips like this, okay? And we put them in the sides of our laptops. Well, there's an even smaller version that's the micro SD card, and it fits in the bottom of some of these, and it's a little itty bitty thing like that. Well, that right there will fit into the bottom of a Raspberry Pi right there. Okay, so if you have the right software on that, your Raspberry Pi will do marvelous and wonderful things. Well, where do you get that? Well, enter Dave Slaughter. He is an Augie. He is a patron and a very smart guy. And what he has done is put together for his club what they call an image. It means it's a complete software download that you can put onto a Raspberry Pi and use it for all this FLDigi work. There's some CW stuff on there. There's all kinds of stuff on there. So I decided to get hold of Dave and have him explain what his download is. And I'm pleased to report that today is the day that version 1.0 of this, what he calls HamPi, is available. So what is HamPi? It's a software download that you can put into a Raspberry Pi. Now the way that software download works, I know this is a little kind of strange for a lot of people like me who are not used to Linux, but you'd put this into your Windows computer, use a piece of software I'll show you later, take the image, that's what's going to be loaded onto the card, load it onto that, take the little memory card out, just stick it into your Raspberry Pi like that, and lo and behold, you've got a computer that will work. If you want, you should put a keyboard and a mouse, and right here there's a little connection for a miniature HDMI plug that will go to an HDMI display, which could be your television, could be your computer monitor, whatever has an HDMI input. And you've got a complete computer. Well, you can also connect it to the internet. There's a place for that too. And so if you're running, say, for example, WSJTX, all the results can be uploaded to PSK Reporter. Or if you're running Whisper, it'll go up to WhisperNet and all that. And it's a lot nicer to just take this little computer, which, by the way, costs way less than $100, and put this over with my radio stuff, have it feed the WSJTX stuff to, the Whisper stuff to WhisperNet, and that's what I'm going to use it for. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an interview with Dave where he talks a lot about how we put this thing together. He's going to go through all the different things that are in it. He's going to talk about how to download it. And then at the conclusion of this, I'm going to come back on and describe for you the places where you can download. The download sites will also be in the text below this video on YouTube, and you can go ahead and do all that download. So let's jump into the interview with Dave Slaughter, W3 DJS. Why don't we talk about this new thing that you have? It's something that goes with it's a software package that goes with the Raspberry Pi. Is that right?
That's correct. It's a software image that I created. This is actually the third version of it. The first two versions were created by hand.
Oh.
This version is created using a software automation tool called Ansible.
Okay, so that handles the, just getting my Raspberry Pi out here. This is a Raspberry Pi. It's a Model B Pi 4. There's many different kinds of these. Does this software package require a specific version of the Raspberry Pi?
It's not so much requires as recommendations. I think it will run fine on a 3 as well as a 4. I would say that a 2 would struggle to run it, and a 1 certainly not.
Okay.
I've actually done things to optimize the image specifically for the Raspberry Pi 4.
Okay. Well, that's what I've got here, the B model. And haven't yet really done anything with it, so I'll be very interested to try this. So tell me a little bit about the project and what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve with this.
Sure. I started the project last October, and what I wanted to do was build an image for the Raspberry Pi with a collection of software like FLDigi and WSJTX and et cetera, just a collection of different software that I could share to some of the members of my local radio club. My local radio club is Gwinnett Amateur Radio Society, or GARS. And when I shared it with them, a few people went and ran, and I thought maybe 10 people might use the thing, but then I thought, well, why should I limit sending this to just my local club? So I posted it online on QRZ, and I posted it online with the Raspberry Pi 4 ham radio group on groups.io. And there it just blew up. Since I originally posted it in October, we've had over 8,000 downloads of the software image by ham radio operators.
Great.
And I honestly thought maybe 10 people would use it, maybe 20. I never thought it would get so popular, but I suppose the price was right.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. Well, tell me some of the things that are in this software collection. You mentioned FLDigi and WSJTX. What else have you got in there?
All right, so this is what the desktop of HamPi looks like. We have some nice little branding that my wife did for me, which was really sweet of her. And on the main menu, the Raspberry Pi menu, you can actually scroll down, and there is a ham radio menu item, which then has a bunch of submenus. So we have antenna analyzer software. We have software for APRS. We have some calculating software. We have RATS, which is really popular here in Gwinnett County. We have the entire suite of FLDigi software. We have software for logging, CW, PSK modes, software-defined radio, some training software, and some weak signal propagation like WSJTX and JS8 call. We also have things like Chirp and gPredict, and even PAT and PAT menu is on this. There are over 80 different applications installed on this, so I'm not going to bore everybody by trying to mention every single one, but it's a very wide variety of software. Somebody was concerned about the interactions between the software in terms of negative interaction. As far as my testing has gone, and I've had a small beta test group, there's been no negative interactions reported. So that doesn't mean there aren't any, but there's nothing major going on with it.
Okay, so how does one go about using this collection of software? I mean, in terms of how does one go about downloading it and putting it onto their Raspberry Pi?
So on the weekend before Field Day 2020, I'm going to upload the final 1.0 release image of HamPi to a couple different Google Drives, and also I'm going to seed it via BitTorrent. At the time I'm seeding it via BitTorrent and posting it for direct download, I will post all those links and share the torrent file, and then basically sit back and watch Google servers go down.
Okay.
So, when I released the prior version of the image, which used to be called W3DJS Raspberry Pi for Ham Radio Image, we had it on 2 different Google Drives, and Google had so much traffic that they actually shut down the downloads.
Oh, dear.
So I'm hoping to mitigate this using BitTorrent.
Okay. So is there some place that someone can go for step-by-step instructions on how to do this? I, for one, am not that familiar with Linux.
So the main support area for this will be both the posting on QRZ and also the Raspberry Pi for Ham Radio group on groups.io. There's lots of people there that can help support all this.
Okay.
But in terms of actually installing this, I can show you right now how that actually works.
Okay, great.
So let's say we have the image downloaded, and so you want to get a program called Balena Etcher, and you want to get that running and installed and running on your system. And when you launch Balena Etcher, it's to show where you can select an image.
So this is Balena Etcher, and we can just look this up on Google.
Yes, it's a really popular software. It's cross-platform, so it's available for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux.
Okay, it looks like it's back to normal now.
Okay, before we resume that, let me get to the download.
Okay.
So this will pop right back up. Okay, so once you have Balena Etcher installed and running on your machine, you can go ahead and select the image file that you want to use. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and install the HamPi 0.9 beta image. As of this time, the 1.0 is not released yet, although we're very close to it.
Okay.
So the image is selected. Then you want to select the drive to flash it to. And I've put in an SD card into the computer.
Okay.
And when I said select, I scroll down to my SD card, and here's one that is 32 gigabytes in size.
Okay.
Which I should probably mention that you need a minimum size card of 16 gigabytes to run the image.
Okay.
But there's no upper maximum. The image, when it starts, should resize and use all the available size of the card.
Okay.
And then once you've selected the image and selected the drive, all I do is click flash and sit back and wait for Balena Etcher to finish. After it's finished, eject the card, put it into the Pi, and power up the Raspberry Pi, and go from there.
Okay, great. Now, once you have it in the Pi, you need to, I take it, attach a keyboard and keyboard and mouse and a display, so that you can pull up the image and do things with it. Is that right?
That's right. And in my case, keyboard, mouse, display, and a radio. I happen to have the ICOM 7300, which you've put on your channel.
Yeah.
I've used WSJTX and FLDigi with it without any issues whatsoever.
Okay, great. And so we would connect the radio with the USB ports. Looks like there's a couple USB 3.0s, but the radio is 2.0.
Yes, in the case of the ICOM 300 and similar modern radios, you can connect them via USB. Collaborated with Northwest Digital Radio for their DRAWS hat. and there is Draws Hat support on the image. So in that particular case, you can put the Draws Hat on top of the Pi when it's turned off, of course, and then you can plug your radio into its little serial ports that it has on there and operate old radios.
Old radios, okay, that take the RS-232.
Yes.
Now, do I need to have some kind of a driver on here for the 7300?
No, you don't. That's the magic of Linux. It may be difficult in some ways, but that's one area where it excels in front of Windows.
Okay, so I just connect that to the 7300. What about sound? Does the Raspberry Pi 4 have a sound card on it yet?
It has sound output through that one single connector on the side.
Yeah.
Sound input, you would have to either hook up a radio with using its sound card on the USB port, like the 7300,
Yeah.
or you'd have to plug in a separate USB device to get sound output. Or I'm sorry, sound input.
I have this little thing right here. It's a sound card. It's a USB sound card. Would something like that work?
It should, yes.
Like if I was going to use this with, say, my Micro BITX or something. This is just a little generic sound card, and it has never required a driver when I've plugged it into the computer. I needed it on my laptop because I had literally worn out the headphone jack. And the headphone wouldn't stay plugged into the laptop anymore, so I just got this. It was a lot cheaper than repairing the laptop.
So what I will say is I've never actually tested that, but from my understanding, it should work.
Okay.
The worst scenario would be that it wouldn't work because you need to you actually might need to install a driver for that.
Okay.
But it should be a little bit of Googling to find the information and go from there.
Okay. The question, what led you to do this? What problem were you trying to solve, or what goal did you have in mind?
I had a couple of different ideas that were crossing my mind, and one of them was to be able to give something to the community of value. And I saw that there are a lot of people with Raspberry Pis or Linux computers that struggle with getting software installed. So I saw there was a need there.
Yeah.
Plus, I wanted to have a software collection that was fairly comprehensive, and wanted to do X, Y, or Z. You could do it with the Raspberry Pi, and that was pretty much what led me to do it. Is just can I do it? Can I give something back to the community? And it's also been a learning experience as well. I've spent the good part of my free time over the last 6 months creating the Ansible playbooks for creating the image using that automated tool.
Okay. Are you doing this in conjunction with some other people?
I have a group of beta testers, and they've some of them have been especially good as far as pointing out issues or concerns. But this is basically a one-man effort. I don't have any contributors actually submitting patches to the project or anything like that. Although, if I can make this a call for help, I would like to have a wiki for this, and if somebody could step forward and volunteer to write a wiki, I would appreciate that.
Okay, well, that'd be something that lots of different people could contribute to, right?
Yes, you don't have to be technical to be a wiki writer.
Okay. So, one of the things I've wanted to do, I have a little QRP Labs Whisper transmitter, and it has a receiver in it, and I've wanted to just use the Raspberry Pi with that so it could send the received signals off to PSK Reporter or wherever it goes, WhisperNet. And I take it I can do that with this then, with your image?
Yes, you can. In fact, I installed that feature specifically for you.
Oh.
You were talking about it on one of your live streams a few months ago, and I heard that, and I made sure to install Whispery Pi
Uh-huh.
on it.
Okay, great. Well, I will put this thing together, and then that can just sit over here by itself and not bother the main computer, the rig, or anything like that. That would be very
Yes.
nice.
Now, Whisper is not on the GUI menu, but it is installed on there. And if you want, I can point you to where it is on the image. I can send you an email after the chat.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be great. And when I get that thing fixed, I'll do a video on that. I appreciate that very much. What kind of responses are you getting from people? What are people using this for?
I've actually had a lot of people use it with WSJTX.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of people use it with DRATs. And then as far as other groups of people, it's just it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I mean, some of the people use the antenna analyzer. Some of the people use the ham study applications on there.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much anything people want to do. There's people doing everything with it.
Mm-hmm. Have people been inundating you with emails about it, or is there a forum?
I have gotten a lot of direct emails, and I haven't encouraged it. I do try to push people to use the online forums, such as the Raspberry Pi for Ham Radio forum on groups.io,
Okay.
and also QRZ, because that's a place where they can talk to other users and they can support each other.
Mm-hmm.
I can't support 8,000 users of the software by myself. That's just too much.
No, nor can I. That's why we have the comments and everything for YouTube.
Now, the nice thing about it is now that I've spent these last 6 months automating the build of the HamPi image,
Yeah.
whenever Joe Taylor releases a new version of WSJTX or Dave releases a new version of FLDigi, all I have to do is basically press the button and run and turn a new image out. I've done the work that it knows how to automatically pick up the new versions off the web and then incorporate them into the next image.
Well, now, if somebody, say, for example, wants to upload or update their image for WSJTX, and they go through the process with that burner, will that write over all their old files, like their log files and stuff like that?
Yes, it will. And I've included some instructions, some very basic instructions to back up the person's home directory, which is the same as backing up a user profile under Windows.
Mm-hmm.
And when they back them up and they store them off of that SD card onto like a flash drive or something, if they just copy it off that and put it on a flash drive,
Yeah.
then they can reflash the new image and then restore the files from the backup and run from there.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes it pretty good. Well, this looks very, very intriguing. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate your support. You're an Augie First Class, your patron, and I appreciate all of that very much. So thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, it's my way of giving back. Thank you, Dave. And I hope I see you at. I hope I see you in Ohio whenever they start having Hamfests again.
Yeah, I hope so. We're planning on 2021.
Okay.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Wait. Bye-bye.
Oh, very good. And Dave, I appreciate everything that you do for ham radio. And there are other Raspberry Pi loads out there. This one is pretty complete, and because it is an automated build, he talked about that. Every time somebody who makes one of the subsidiary software products comes out with their new product, they're all free, he will update this load. So every so often, you'll want to download the updated software. Now, he mentioned in there, and I just want to point this out again, you don't want to just write over what's on the chip because you lose all your data. So there is a process that he has documented to where you save your user profile on a separate device, like your main computer or whatever, and then download the new one, then download your user profile back on it so you don't lose your logbook and things like that. As I said, Linux has got a couple little tricky gotchas, but it's not Windows. Windows, of course, has its own tricky gotchas, but we're all familiar with them by now. So what you're seeing on the screen is places where you can download this, and I'll put these also in the text just below the video on YouTube. So thank you very much, Dave. We greatly appreciate what you do. Now, if you would please take a look at dcasler.com/support for different ways that you can support this channel. One of the things that I purchased with these channel funds is this Raspberry Pi right here. I got this at the Reno Hamfest in 2019, and it's an interesting little computer. A lot of people are very into Raspberry Pis. If you like this, I hope that you will give this a try. It's a great way to use a Raspberry Pi in your ham station. One of the upcoming videos is a review of the MyAntennas EnFed Halfwave 80 through 10, which I also purchased with channel funds. It's up now, it's operating, and I will have a video on that coming up very soon. So, until we next meet, 73.